Hello, everyone. It's Fiona here from FionaMikes.com, and I am back with my friend and colleague Fernando Raul Castro. And we are both graduates of the Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program. And at the moment, we are exploring Fernando's second video for his Year 4 submission that was all about the differences and the similarities between Vedic astrology and other traditional astrologies. And I enjoyed his video so much that I have invited him onto my channel to tell me more about each of these facets of difference and similarities. So may I please ask Fernando that you say hello to everyone.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Fiona, for inviting me once again to your channel. Always a pleasure.
Very welcome. Now, today we are catching up on a topic that I accidentally said we would get to last week. And this is about that in traditional astrologies, there are the use of the day sects and the night sects, and that if you guys did the Asheville Vedic Astrology Apprenticeship Program with us, you will remember from the Bala course that we did touch on this in the calculation of Bala, but apart from that, it kind of slipped under the radar. So when Fernando put it in his video, it really picked up my interest, you know, because it's something that I knew a little something about, but it seems to have been developed or more extrapolated in maybe perhaps different traditional astrologies. So why don't you tell us about this contrast between, how it's used in Vedic astrology and how it's used in other astrologies?
Okay, great. So this is very fun. Like, this is a technique that I learned after I studied Jyotish. And when I learned it, I was like, wow, why isn't this in Jyotish? And then I figured out, oh, it's in Jyotish, but it's just mentioned and nobody talks about it anymore. And there's a slight change that we're going to talk about that.
Yes.
And that is going to also touch upon a subject that we already touched, which is the idea of the relationship of the Sun and Saturn.
Correct.
So let's start. First of all, what does the word sect mean? A sect is like a group of devotees, right? Like it's like a small group of acolytes, a group of people who follow a particular faith or a particular dogma or that sort of thing, right? It comes from the Greek word airesis, and this is a term that originated in Hellenistic astrology. So this is really old. I mean, this is like from the grandmother of all astrologies, which is Hellenistic, which is the fusion of Chaldean astrology, Egyptian astrology, in that Hellenistic melting pot that started in the 2nd century BC after the Macedonian conquest of Alexander the Great, probably the second most important man to ever have lived after Jesus Christ. So you have to remember the importance of this man, Alexander the Great, in terms of his influence and his indirect influence on astrology. Okay, so sect is really old. So it alludes to the idea of sect, of groups, of airesis. And it's the idea that the traditional planets in astrology are separated into two groups, two sects.
Okay.
You have the lunar or night sect, and you have the day or diurnal sect. And this is very important, okay? So obviously, you know, the diurnal sect, who's going to be there? The sun, right?
Sun.
And who's going to be in the night sect? The moon.
Okay.
And even though, I mean, I don't know if this is correct to say if they're the leaders, but the idea is that in each sect, you have to have one luminary, you have to have one benefic, and you have to have one malefic.
Okay.
So in the day sect, you have the sun, the luminary, you have Jupiter, the benefic, and you have Saturn, the malefic. While in the night sect, you have the moon, a luminary, you have Venus first. You have Venus, a benefic, and you have Mars, a malefic. If you've noticed, I did not mention Mercury. Why? Because what is Mercury? Mercury is the eternal actor. Mercury is the chameleon. Mercury always changes. His mind is always adapting. So his allegiance will depend on his essential and accidental dignity. So we're going to keep Mercury over to the side for a while we explain the sect. So we have two sects. So you divide the planets into these two sects. the moon or the night or the nocturnal sect, and the day, the sun, or the diurnal sect. And this is how you start. Okay.
Okay.
Why do we do this? I don't know. This is the tradition, right? There might be explanations to why. I mean, for example, Sun, Jupiter are superior planets. You have Mars and Venus being inferior to them and then being on the sect, right? And you have the idea of how these planets relates in other types of configurations in terms of their exaltations, in terms of their joys per houses, which we're going to talk about that later on, in terms of how, for example, the malefics relate to each other in a way and the benefics relate to another, and how the day planets and the day planets and the night planets relate to each other in these arrangements in terms of specific aspects, right? So we're not going to talk about that because that's going to be a little bit too tedious. But the idea is that they divide themselves like that. And
Okay.
this is a very old technique, okay? So what do we use it for, right? Well, the first thing that you have to see in any natal chart is obviously rectifying the chart and knowing the time of birth. So the idea is, when were you born? Were you born during the day or were you born during the night? That's how you start.
Okay.
Okay. This is very basic technique. And some of you might be saying, well, Fernando, how do I know if I was born during the day or the night? Well, if you were born at 12 noon, you were born during the day. And if you were born at 12 midnight, you were born during the night. Now, if you want to see it visually in the chart, I mean, with North Indian charts, it's easier to see than with South Indian charts. It's
Okay.
much easier to see with a circular chart. But the idea is that in the North Indian chart, right? Imagine the first house and the seventh house.
Yep.
If the sun is between the ascendant, the 12th, the 11th, the 10th, the 9th, the 8th, and the 7th, you were born during the day.
Okay.
If the sun is in the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, or the 7th, then you were born during the night. Now, what happens if you have the sun in the first house, right? Or the 7th house? Well, you have to see the line of the ascendant. That's why you have to know how to read a chart. So if the sun is in the 7th house above the horizon, you were born during the day.
Yep.
If it's below the horizon in the 7th house, you were born during the night. Now, if the sun is above the horizon in the first house, you were born during the day. And if it's below the horizon, you were born during the night. And this is very important because you have to identify what time of the day you were born. If you have the sun in the same ascendant degree, in the same minute, in the same second, then we might have a problem. So that usually does not happen. And at the same time, there are different ways to calculate the sun, because remember, the sun is big. So it's the idea of if the tip goes first or the middle. So we're not going to talk about that. And there are different opinions about that I do not necessarily master, because I've never been, I've never seen a case like that. But there's been some debate that I'm aware of about that case in particular. But I know some classical authors that have talked about that, but I don't know the particularities to say. But the idea is that usually never happens. But the idea is you got to know when you were born. Now,
all right, let's just hold there,
yes,
because that's a very practical way to read whether it's day or night. And
yes.
Am I correct then in thinking that will account for the shortness of the day or the longness of the day by using the ascendant and the position of the sun? Automatically, you factor in whether it was the longest day of the year or the shortest day of the year.
It doesn't matter. You were born during the day or the night. If you were born in I don't know, in the northern part of Greenland,
yes,
during the winter, then you're gonna have a very few sunlight.
Yeah.
But if you were born during that time, right? And if you were born, I don't know, in the southern tip of Argentina during their summer, then if you were born during, a little specific time of the night, then you were born during the night. It's very simple. The chart will arrange itself. Remember, the software will do it. Thank God. We don't have to do that.
Sorry, now we're getting technical. Yeah. But then actually you need to look at the cusps, don't you? Because it's not with the equal house, equal sign.
Yes.
It wouldn't reflect that. But if you check the cusps, that will reflect the curvature of the earth and the tilt. Yeah. So
yes, but remember, the cusps that always change are going to be, The cusp that will vary will be the midheaven and the imum coeli. That will be the one that will change a lot, right? The
Okay.
horizon is always the horizon,
Okay.
right? If you are in the summer, then that trajectory of the sun is going to be longer.
Yes.
If you are during the winter, it's going to be shorter. So the cusps, don't worry about that. We're talking about well, in terms of the horizon, yes, you will see the cusps of the ascendant and the descendant, which represent the horizon.
Yes. Yes. But
So you
if
have to
I'm
take
born in Greenland, as you were saying, in the middle of winter, it's very likely that I will be a night chart. Is that what you're saying? Because there's so much night.
Yes, but don't worry about that because it's visually the calculations the software is going to do it. So even if you were born in Greenland, which I doubt, I don't know, I think the north part of Greenland is uninhabited, but I don't think you're gonna have like hospitals there. But the idea is that if you were born there, or in the northern part of Canada, or the northern part of Siberia, Alaska, or Norway, or whatever, the idea is that the software is gonna do it. Right, there's going to be shorter day. Also, I mean, the sun is going to be a shorter time above the horizon in winter, for example, and much more time during the summer. So don't worry about that. It's the idea of knowing where it is. Is it above the horizon, the sun? Then you were born during the day. Is it below the horizon? You were born during the night. And it's very particular because usually when people explain this, they don't like explain what I just explained with the detail that we did. But it's very easy. It's very easy to know.
Yeah, it's good. It's really grounded in, it grounds your birth.
Yes.
To the experience that the planet Earth was happening at the moment that you got here. So
yes.
Good. It's
and
good.
We can take that idea and take it even further with the idea of clouds, of rain, of thunder, of blizzards, of drought. But that's another time. That's another thing, right? But
Good.
the idea is that yeah. So you gotta first know that now.
All right. So you
now
work out night or day. Excellent.
Yes. So what happens next? Now you gotta know where you are. So let's say you were born during the day. So what does that mean? That means that the dominant sect is gonna be the
sun and
the
Jupiter
sect. Exactly.
and Saturn.
So it's gonna be Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Yeah.
So during a day birth, the sun is going to be the principal sect leader, right? Don't forget about the sun and the moon, but the idea is that the diurnal sect is going to be the principal. Hence, Jupiter is going to be the more powerful benefic, and Saturn is going to be the more constructive malefic, while Venus is going to be the least efficient benefic, and Mars is going to be the more complicated malefic. Now, if you were born during the night, it reverses that.
Yep.
During the night, Venus is going to be the more powerful benefic or more constructive benefic, while Jupiter is going to be the least efficient benefic. And at the same time, Mars is going to be the more constructive malefic, and Saturn is going to be the least, the more problematic malefic. Now, that is just a principle. We have to see dignities, right? Because even though you were born during the day, if you have Mars in Capricorn, that's going to be a very strong Mars, and that's going to give really good results. Now, is it going to be good results to the maximum? No, there are probably going to be some issues there. At the same time, if you were born during the night and you have Jupiter in Cancer, I mean, he's not going to be as efficient as Venus, but he's going to give a lot of good results. So you always have to take this into consideration. At the same time, if you were born during the day and you have Saturn combust, that is going to affect that Saturn. He's going to be constructed, but it's going to be affected. And if you were born during the night, if you have Venus in Virgo, there are going to be some problems there.
Yeah.
So you have to really put your mind to it, and you have to see all these moving parts together. But that is, in part, the beginning of this technique that is completely absent in Jyotish. So what do we have in Jyotish? We have the Kalabala, which is the force of time. Kala, time, bala, force, source, strength, or whatever. So here we have it mentioned in Parashara, in the first chapters. You have it.
Yes.
But what happens? They change Venus for Saturn. So they say that the day sect is the sun, it is Jupiter, and it's Venus. And they say the night sect is the night
Moon,
sect
Mars, and
is
Saturn.
Moon, Mars, and Saturn, right?
So they're
So
a bit unbalanced.
not only that, why did they do that? Remember what we
Yeah,
talked about Saturn and the Sun? They gotta keep them together.
apart.
They gotta keep
Yeah,
them separated.
yeah.
That is my opinion, right? That is my opinion. But the
Yeah.
idea is that the curious thing is that this is mentioned both in Javanayataka, Parashara, and I believe in other classics, but I'm pretty sure they mention in those two because I read it. So the idea is, and I remember, so the idea is that they change it, but at the same time, those planets don't have any application. Actually, if you take into consideration all the Shadbala calculations, you're going to see that different astrologers have different interpretations of what Kalabala means and other strengths, but we're not going to talk about that. But the idea is that that is there and they don't use it. Why is there? Because that is a technique that came from Hellenistic times, very old times, that came into India, and probably they didn't know what to do with it. So, as I said, this is just the beginning of Sect. There are other applications that we're not going to necessarily talk about that, but this is the most important one. So, if you were born during the day, keep an eye out for the benefics. Keep an eye out for Jupiter and keep an eye out for Saturn, because those are going to be the most predisposed towards giving you good stuff, while Venus and Mars are more predisposed to giving you not so good stuff or more difficulties or less results. While if you were born during the night, then keep an eye out for Mars and Venus, because they're going to give you good things, more predisposed to that. While Saturn and Jupiter are probably not going to be so efficient or are going to be more complicated. Now, there are some varieties. For example, the idea of night sects. Some people say that the moon has to be below the horizon, and there are some particularities where ancient astrologers have differ a little bit, but this is just the beginning. And this is really big in Hellenistic and Islamic astrology. But this is just not used at all in Jyotish. But it is something that can be harmonized between both traditional astrologies. I believe that Sect in this application of knowing which is the more constructive malefic, which is the most efficient benefic, while knowing which is the least efficient benefic and the most difficult malefic, can be applied to techniques. So that's basically the explanation of Sect and how it is present and how it is not present in Jyotish.
Yeah. All right. So then let's examine that a little bit. I've got two follow-up questions
Okay.
for you, which I don't know the answer to either. So you can tell me that you.
Let's hope I have it, but I don't know if I have. Okay.
Okay. So tell me, this is something that you've said you stumbled across after you gained your knowledge of Vedic astrology. So you had a good framework already, and then you were exposed to this idea and it kind of clicked with you. Do you have any stories to share of specific insights or charts where you went, wow, now I can see how powerful that is?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
For example, I did a little experiment where I examined like Raya yogas with this technique. It didn't go anywhere, but then I saw it in my chart. I saw it in my chart because you got to remember, if there are more indications towards the aggravation or the bonification of a planet, Sect is going to is
have a
going to have
casting vote.
yeah, specifically if you have a very dominant planet. Remember, dominant planets allude to the idea of planets that are close to the midheaven. Why? Because they're dominant. You got to look up. Oh, they're there. Oh, the king, right? The 10th house, the king, God. Oh, he's up there. If you have dominant planets, look at them. Look at their dignity, essential and accidental, and Sect is gonna give you a lot. For example, if you have a very dominant planet in the midheaven, see Sect, right? If you were born during the day and Mars is there, probably you're gonna be known for causing trouble to a certain degree, right? If you were born during the night and Saturn is there, you're gonna be known for difficulties or that Saturnian aspect, right? But at the same time, they're gonna be more aggravated due to other techniques of Sect that we haven't talked about, which are the I don't know how to call it in English, but it's basically like graduations of the Sect. For example, you have to see the day sect and the night sect. Now, if the planet is in a day sign, and it's a day planet, and it's good, and it's during the day, it's even better. But if it's a day chart, and let's say Mars is in a, well, that's not a good example. Let's say you were born during the night, right?
Okay.
And you have Saturn, right?
Yeah.
So Saturn is dominant, right,
Okay.
during the night. So it's going to be really, really difficult. But if Saturn is in a male sign, in a female sign, in a night sign, it's going to be even worse.
Okay.
And if Saturn is a occidental planet, that means that he goes down in the west after the sun, it's even worse.
Okay.
So these are two graduations that go after that. You got to see in which sign it is, right?
Yeah.
If it's in a day sign or a night sign, and usually that is dealt with polarities, right?
Yeah.
How do you call that? Pair numbers? No, even numbers are female signs.
Yes.
And odd numbers are male signs.
Yeah.
Hence, odd numbers are solar or day signs, and even numbers are night signs. There is a little bit of discussion there. Some astrologers say that is not how you divide the signs. Some people say you have to divide the signs by the planets and their sect allusion. Some people say that you have to do it by the idea of the solstice line between Cancer and Capricorn. But yeah, whatever. And the other graduation that you do is if the planet is occidental or oriental. This is very important. Oriental is that you can see the planet during early morning, rising up before the sun.
Yep.
If day planets are there, that is a bonification. If night planets are there, it's not that good.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you have occidental planets, planets that you can see going down in the west during during the evening, right?
Yes.
During the evening after the sun. If
Yep.
day planets are there, it's not good. If night planets are there, are good. So you got to see the relation to the sun. And then you have to see other factors like retrogradation, combustion, aspects from malefics or benefics, and so on and so forth. So there you have it.
No, it's great. I mean, it's a lot to
digest,
wrap one's head around initially, but I can see that if
it's very simple. It's very simple.
Exactly. If one decides, this becomes one of the first questions you ask about a chart. Is it a night chart or a day chart? And then from that
it
observation,
is the first one. Yes.
Yeah.
It is the first one.
A whole lot of things fall into place. So, okay. So that's really good, sharing some of your own experience. Now, I just want to go back to when we talked about how they are represented, perhaps in Kala Bala, that we swap Saturn over to the other side to keep it away from the sun. And I was saying
that is my opinion.
Exactly. And I was saying that it seemed a bit unbalanced, because if we look at the sects as you have defined them, we've got a luminary in each, right? And we've got a benefic in each, and we've got a malefic in each. And on top of that, we've got the moon perhaps being female is with a female benefic, and the sun being male, perhaps with Jupiter, is with a male benefic. Okay, so it seems like it's got this balance. But as I've been thinking about it since we had that conversation a couple of minutes ago, this solar sect does seem to have a lot of heavyweights in it. Don't you think? Sun, Jupiter, Saturn, Sun, biggest planet, Jupiter, Saturn are the two biggest planets. So we've got a lot of
and the moon sect has fast planets.
Gravitational pull here. And I can see how the temptation might be to want to get Saturn onto the other side, just to give everybody a big hitter and spread out the little players a little bit more. So I don't know whether you have any thoughts on what is with the stacking of the solar sect, and they get all the big guys.
You got to go for the exaltations of the planets, and you got to go to the joys of the planets, right?
Okay.
So exaltations, everybody knows.
But let's go through them one by one. Let's just go through. So if we look at the solar sect, the exaltation of the sun is in Aries.
Correct.
Which would be, let's give that the sign 1, Aries, the sign. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, the 4th sign, and Saturn is exalted in Libra, the 7th sign. So 1, 4, 7.
You're going to see that the relationship is between hard aspects of squares and oppositions.
Yeah,
right?
because these are angles, right?
Correct.
So angular houses are 1, 4, 7. So we know that anything in those houses has got that 90-degree angle. Okay.
Yes, from the cardinal point of view,
exactly. That's
yes.
right. So for sun sect, the exaltation of the sun sect planets is at 90 degrees to each other.
Correct.
Okay, well, now let's take it over to the moon and the lunar side. We have the moon is exalted in Taurus. Let's call that the second sign. Venus is exalted in Pisces. Let's call that the 12th sign. And Mars is exalted in the 10th. Capricorn, sorry, which we're calling the 10th sign. So we can see that we've got the between 2, 12, and 10, we have 60 degrees of aspect.
Which would be the relationship of sextile.
Okay, great. So that would be one reason.
One reason, possible reason. And the other one is the joys of the planets,
okay,
which is the idea that each planet, due to accidental dignity, enjoy certain houses. For example, Mercury likes the first.
Okay.
Moon likes the third.
Okay.
Venus likes the fifth.
Yep.
Mars likes the sixth.
Yep.
The Sun likes the ninth. Jupiter likes the 11th, and Saturn likes the 12th. And in that correlation, the day planets are above the horizon.
Because they're in 9, 11, 12.
Correct. While the night planets are below the horizon in 3, 5, and 6. So more or less, you get an idea of why they're divided that way. I was trying to look for the chapter in Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra where you have the allusions of Kala, but right now I don't remember.
I think it's chapter 3.
Yes, it's chapter
35 to 38.
Oh, nice. Did I say that in the video?
I pay attention to these things.
Yeah, right here. Planetary strengths. Thank you. Chapter 3, Shloka 35, 38. Planetary strengths. Strong in the east are Mercury and Jupiter, like directional strength, whatever. Sun and Mars south, which would be the midheaven, blah, 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Okay, here it is. Again, during the night are Moon, Mars, and Saturn, while Mercury is strong during the day and the night. The rest, Jupiter, Sun, and Venus, are strong only in the daytime. And we forgot about Mercury. What happens to Mercury? Mercury will be day or night depending if it's occidental or oriental.
Okay. So if it's rising before the sun or if it's setting after the sun.
Correct.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I think we've blown open that topic. I think this is
it's a very beautiful technique. You're going to love it. People are going to love it.
Practice and come back and talk about another time. But it's just great to be exposed to ideas in astrology that they pick up on similar things, they build on each other, and it's great to kind of tease them apart to look at what might be in that Vedic thought and what might be in the traditional thought. So thanks for exploring it even more with me today, Fernando. I will post the whole video here with a link, and this discussion, Sects, it starts around 40 minutes. So if you want to hear the proper discussion, go on and see Fernando's video.
Yeah, thanks more or less. I think I've explained it here much better than I did there. So yeah.
I don't know. Let's see. All right. I will look forward to speaking to you next week.
Take care.
Okay. Thanks, Fernando. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Ciao.